Welcome to Using Your Power. I'm David Andrew Wiebe, and joining me, as always, is
Maveen, Kaura.
Hey Maveen, how's it going?
Hey, David, I'm doing very good, man. I'm just sipping on my tea like usual, and this time I got a different blend in my cup, and excited to do our conversation today.
Great, good to hear. Yeah, I'm looking forward to this one as well. And when you came up with it, I felt like it was a fairly unique topic. And what we're going to do is we're going to talk about 10 ways to make $100. We know that many of you might be aspiring to much more than that. But I think it all starts with figuring out your mindset around how to make a little bit of money, and turning a little bit of money into more money is not as big of a shift when you can already make that little bit of money. I've even heard some people say, I'll get into the smallest possible niche I can get into. And even if there's only 5 cents in it, I want the 5 cents. So, that's a relatable starting point for just about anybody. And we firmly believe that anybody listening to this could easily make an extra $100 per month using some of the strategies we've shared here. Maybe not all of them, but some of them will be applicable more than likely. So do you want to start us off?
Yeah, for sure. I just wanted to kind of add to that as well, David. I know,
Sure.
If you can't see yourself making $100 in a day or in a month or over a 1 week period, start smaller than that $100 goal. I mean, we're going to talk about $100 just because we know over 1 month, an extra $100 is, $1,200 at the end of the year. Now, if you can start looking at ways to make $100 a week, now that's an extra, $50 to $100 in the year, right? And,
True.
If whatever your goal is, start small. If you got to think, you can only think $10 right now, then think $10, but then add another zero to that. And then, how cool is it when you can add a zero to that $100, and now you got $1,000 an extra a month, which equals about $12,000 a year, right? So I think this talk is a great talk for anybody, no matter where you are in your business or in your mindset for just, looking for that extra cash or potentially even supplementing an income.
Well, that's something I wanted to say as well. Like for many people, that difference in income could actually be life-changing. Just $100. It's pretty amazing to think about, like, $100 20, 30, 40 years ago would be considerably more than $100 today. But, when you stop and think about what $100 can afford you, I mean, it could probably feed a single person for 2 weeks, or possibly even 3 weeks if you distribute it well. So.
Absolutely. And what's the other thing you can do with $100, right? I think I'd like to go just kind of before we get into giving the ideas of what we've come up with to the people.
Yeah.
I think before you want to make $100, you got to have a reason to make $100.
That's true.
And let's go back and forth and maybe think of things what we would do with extra $100, and let's and have our listening audience maybe start brainstorming what things they could possibly do with another $100 as well.
Well, I like the idea of investing back into my business. So maybe like spending $100 into advertising to maybe draw in some new customers. You could put an extra $100 into your savings account as long as you have a goal for what that savings account means to you. I have 3 buckets. One is the emergency fund, and I think everybody should have an emergency fund, and fear is actually a strong motivator for many of us, right? So having that emergency fund's great. The other 2 buckets, one of them is the dream fund. We all would love to be able to do the things we want to do, whether that's like buying a bass boat or going on vacation to Hawaii. If you put away $100 per month, well, you could probably get a decent vacation within 15 to 20 months. It's not as long as it might sound. And then my final savings account is the aggressive growth fund. So after everything else I've paid into my dream fund or my emergency fund, with all of that backup, I can now invest aggressively into things I believe in or want to do. And obviously you want to build that to a substantial point before you start investing aggressively, because if you don't have resources to play with, really nothing's going to happen with that money. A lot of people will like to play with $100 or $1,000, and really you need tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars to play at the level that most people actually aspire to in investing. So
you're right there, and there is a place for putting your money aside, David, and just kind of, enjoying it in the future. But sometimes, a lot of times, a lot of people like myself and maybe yourself too, we're in that place where we could use $100 today to maybe even take our wives out or our girlfriends out for a nice dinner. Maybe we can use that $100 if you got kids to go to a movie these days, right? 2 adult tickets and a couple of kids tickets and popcorn and pop, add to probably close to $100, right? So it's a nice evening out with the family, out with your friends. homes. I mean, there's a lot of different things you could do, like buy clothes, buy shoes, even put the extra $100 towards your mortgage if you have one.
Yeah, there's a lot of immediate things or immediate pulls towards having that extra $100, assuming that you aren't already backwards in your finances, in which case that you probably should just put that towards your debt.
That's true too. I've always felt the same. If you're in a place of debt, I mean, it's not a bad thing. Absolutely. It is sometimes needed to do the things you need to do. And I know with the economy that we have in Canada and US, there's a lot of people who are in debt, maybe for good or bad reasons. Yeah. But, wherever our listeners are in their financial point today, that's okay. That can change, right? And that's kind of why I think we came up with this idea of doing the how to make $100 is that $100 today can change your life forever, because not only does it put extra money in your pocket, it really gives you that different kind of mindset and how to become maybe a better business owner or be better with your own money, right? Not just, hey, I got an extra $100, I'm going to spend it. I think you hit it on the nose. It's like, pay your debts and then start maybe putting it away when you start putting that extra $100 towards your debt, right? If you start putting an extra $100 towards your credit card, for example, just imagine how quickly you can, pay off that credit card and how much additional money you can save in interest alone.
Yeah, that makes a huge difference. Yeah, if you're not aware of how much interest you're paying on your credit cards, that might be something to have a closer look at and see how terrifying it actually is. And then maybe some fear-based motivation will give you the fire that you need to go and make that extra $100. But really, we're not talking about a huge investment in time or energy or resources to make that $100, and that's because it's not necessarily hard to do. But having those ideas and having those tools on your belt will help you to get to that point quicker.
Absolutely. I'm going to start it off. Let's start with, I'm going to start with a little bit different way. I'm not going to talk about different ways we can work and make $100. I'm going to just talk about things that we already are doing. So one of the things a lot of us have in our homes is a television. And, we're watching 6, maybe 8 hours a day of television. At night we come home after work if we're not, if we're at work, it's during that 9 to 5 kind of hour. So one of the things we can definitely do to help us make an extra $100, in a month, in this example, is cut your television, cut your cable subscription. That's
easily $100, especially if you have it bundled with other services.
Well, exactly. And sometimes I know they do allow you to bundle the services to bring those costs down. Take a look at what you really need. Most of the days now, you really just need the internet, to be honest. A lot of stuff you can watch either on different social media stuff like YouTube, and you can go to different channels on the internet and watch different videos, and you can catch up on the news, and you can catch up on a lot of different shows, even like Netflix on the internet.
If you just switch over to Netflix or something like that, I don't think either of us advocate going to like a quote unquote free site to watch content. I mean, it's there. It's not really your fault that it's there, but I'd still like supporting the shows and people that I like, the creative people that I like. So
no, for sure, right? And I mean, but people are uploading the news and people are uploading clips onto different places.
Yeah.
So if it's free right now, then I'm not going to tell you to go or not to go, but I do go myself. So I'm going to go watch I'll watch a music video, or I'll watch a news clip that I missed on CNN that I'll watch on YouTube instead, right? I mean, it's saving me $100 easy a month just by cutting my cable subscription in this case. Right now, when I had, I'm just going to kind of go back here for a second. When I actually bought my home just about a year ago now, they actually gave us a 1-year free subscription to the internet, cable TV, and telephone as well. So that was just a way for them to attract us, right? So now once that subscription ends, we will then have to refigure out, do we want to pay now $100 a month, which is a true expense now out of our pocket for these 3 services, or can we just live with just the internet and even a landline if we still require it?
Yeah, I think you just made me think of something else too. So this might end up being like 11 ways, so maybe 10 ways plus 1 bonus way.
There you go.
But it is connected to what you just said, which is things lying around in your house. Something that I still do, and more than likely this will become not worth my time at some point in the very near future, is collect bottles, cans, things like that, and then I'll take them to the bottle depot. Now, to be fair, if you're purchasing all those bottles and cans, really you're not earning anything. You would have to go out on the streets or like ask your neighbors about collecting bottles and cans to really make it something that's actually a profit, right? Otherwise, you're just fighting against the costs that you've already spent. But we all spend on drinks, if we're truly honest with ourselves, whether that's alcoholic drinks or pop or like aloe vera or green tea based, beverages.
Even a bottle of water.
Even a bottle of water. There you go. So if you collect those things and take them to the bottle depot, you get a bit of money back. And that's something I still do. And I collect my own bottles and cans in addition to my roommates. So
there you go. So now you're making their money on their deposits.
That's right.
Well, you made me think too, one of the things you said, a lot of times, especially come winter now, you'll see a lot of these little kids out going door to door to collect cans for their hockey teams or whatnot as well, right? So, I mean, it's a great place to also take those same cans that we collect for ourselves
and then give them.
And donate it to these kids as well, right? I mean, I see kids all the time coming, and I feel bad because I'll give it to the first one, and there's another one coming, and there's Girl Guides coming, and there's another one coming, and they all want your cans, and it's like, I already gave it to the one that was before you. So it's tough, you start feeling bad because you can't give all your cans to divide them up, but it is a great way to help in the community as well by spreading that out.
I don't see why not. Next point is to sell household items. So you talked a little bit about canceling services or canceling subscriptions that you have that you don't need. It could be not just TV, but also like magazine subscriptions that perhaps aren't like adding value or any immediate value to your life. Like I know there's a lot of great publications out there, but some of them are just going to draw attention away from maybe thinking about how to get the finances that you need for your family or for the lifestyle that you've chosen for yourself that you're looking to live, or maybe you're aspiring to. So, I mean, household items, might have to sell a good number of them to get to $100. Or if it's like an old couch, but a nice couch, you could maybe even get more than $100 for it. So there's really there's a lot of potential there. And you could even hold like a garage sale to get a bunch of items in one place and get rid of things that you don't even need anymore, clearing that clutter away to make room for new things. That's how I always think about clearing clutter. So.
It's perfect. I think I want to take your example. I'm actually going to move into my example with that one, if it's okay.
Sure.
Because your example of going to garage sales really just works into my example I had. So one thing that myself and my wife have enjoyed doing is actually going to garage sales and, finding items that we could purchase and resell, right? So we'll find a product, we've bought anything and everything that we think that we could sell and make some money with, right? So, I mean, we've bought old projectors, we've bought old lamps, we've bought, we found a pair of Ray-Bans for $1 and they're real, so we're going to sell them for over $100 in profit as well. So, I mean, we just look for things. We've found paintings, we've found, anything that people may be selling that they don't see of interest, like they say, right? One man's garbage is another man's treasure, right? So
that's what eBay is all about.
Yeah, that's exactly. And we're on eBay too. Yeah. So, and that's kind of the format we've chosen just to have as a little side fun thing to do, right? Me and my wife, we go out and we'll, kind of plan our day and kind of plan what we want to do on a Saturday and even sometimes on a Sunday. And we'll kind of go to different parts where we think the people might be having the best garage sale and might have the best items. And we'll try to see what we can find, right? And it's kind of fun thing to do together. And we actually learned quite a bit about different products, and you have some really cool conversations with the different people who have had these products as well. And they can tell you all the history behind it. So, when it comes down to your research on selling it, they've already kind of given you a lot of the things you need to know about
the talking points. Yeah. The really interesting thing that I like about that is like, you're not talking about having a garage sale, you're talking about going to a garage sale. So really it's this concept of investment. If I put in this amount of money, I can potentially get this amount of money back. Obviously there's no guarantees, but I've done the same thing, and it also ties in directly with what I'm going to share, which is maybe just like a term for what you just described, is like arbitrage.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, and arbitrage sounds like something scary and difficult to do, but it's exactly what Maveen described. It's buying goods at a low price and then selling them at a higher price. Now we have to be somewhat careful. Like if you're an Amazon seller, they're coming down pretty strictly on third-party sellers at this point. I would not recommend getting into retail arbitrage on Amazon, but meanwhile, what Maveen described is perfectly acceptable and legal too. Like, for example, I was driving somebody. I give them rides. I like to do nice things for people sometimes. So I just met this guy, and I was driving him home, and we got to talking about guitar because I'm a musician. And he said he had a old guitar he was looking to get rid of. Like, he didn't want to put it in hands or give it to somebody that wouldn't take good care of it. But he I guess he obviously needed the money more so than he needed the guitar.
Right.
So I bought it off of him for $100.
Wow.
But I didn't need the guitar. So then I turned around and sell it to somebody who was responsible as well for more money. So that's an example of how arbitrage can work. Some of the lesser forms, quote unquote, of arbitrage are like hawking tickets to an event. Like, that's a little crazy to me. Like, oh, I bought these tickets, but I didn't really want to go to this concert. Or like people that just want to make a buttload of money on the tickets that somebody else wanted in the first place. It's kind of unfair.
You know, I'm gonna stop you on that one. I've actually had to sell tickets that I've bought previously. You know,
that I can see, right? Because now you're committed to an event, and now you can't go for whatever reason. Something more urgent came up, so then you want to sell your tickets. Like that, I can totally understand.
Well, I did sell them at a profit as well, so let's just say that as well, right?
Enough.
Now, I could have definitely sold them at face value, but I mean, not that I bought them to sell because it was just one ticket I sold. I didn't sell a pair of tickets. You know, luckily the person who bought it wanted just one ticket, right? I mean, it's very tough sometimes to find people who want just the one ticket as well, right? So You're right. Even if you're buying to go and then you get sick and you can't go, or you know, an emergency comes up, sometimes you know you buy these tickets and you know you can lose on them as well, especially if you can't make it, right? So
you can, yeah. But that is, you know, one thing a lot of people do, or like really nowadays it's mostly bots. Bots are buying up all the tickets and then selling them on other sites for more money.
Yeah, I don't like that at all.
Yeah, that's maybe where, you know, you want to draw the line a little bit.
Yeah, I agree with you. You know, we've got up and try to get to the pre-sales all the time, and you know, for just different concerts that are coming in Calgary or in Edmonton. You know, it's not a far drive from here, right? And as soon as we're on there, all the floor tickets are sold out. The first level sold out, and it's like, how could this possibly be, right? Because I mean, we just literally jumped on and it just opened up, right? Yeah, and it's just, you know, it's frustrating, you know, especially when you're trying to buy something and you're doing it legally, and you're taking your time and you're getting beat by these robots that can just, you know, do it a lot faster than you, and then you have to end up buying from them, and you're buying from them at a much higher price, right? But again, if we're looking at ways to make $100, that's a great way to make $100.
No, that's true. It is for sure. Well, the interesting thing about tickets too, like obviously the certain number are going to be given away by like a radio station, so you know that maybe accounts for 5 or 10 tickets, and then maybe there's other ticket giveaways. But when, like exactly what you said, when you're seeing that hundreds of tickets or even potentially thousands of tickets are already sold out and you can't get a good seat anymore, that's when you're like, what? I was on here for a second, like what happened?
That's true. And you know, you actually made me think of something. Like if you call into radio stations and you're let's say you win a pair of tickets, right? Not necessarily that you wanted to go to it, but let's say you win a pair of tickets to, like, say, a country concert, and I'm personally not into, you know, country music. Nothing wrong with it, just not my style of music. But if I won a pair, I could love to sell them, right? And that's just another way to win tickets, and then even potentially sell them just to make $100 as well, potentially, right? Depending on the artist.
Well, I think you bring up a really interesting point there, which is, you know, people go on to like Jeopardy or Wheel of Fortune, or maybe even they just enter a local contest with some chain store like Shoppers Drug Mart or whatever. I'm just throwing out examples, but whatever, you enter the contest and you win something. Well, for some people, it would be better to turn around and sell that item than to keep it in many cases. Like if you're in debt or if you're in some kind of financial trouble, holding on to that item will actually just kind of create that resentment, because now you're like, I can't actually afford it. I just want a car, but now I have to service it every month, and now I have to put gas in it, and this is like stealing away money from me. Well, the car's brand new. It's still going to be less than probably what was just driven off the lot, but you can still sell it for a considerable amount of money. Put that towards your debt, put that towards your savings, pay yourself first, and then, you know, you could start tackling some of those financial issues that you have. So that's something to consider too. You know, I'm going to use that as a nice segue here to go on to my next point. You jerk. I think you nailed it. It's perfect for what I want to say. It's if you're in financial problems, which, you know, not
not all our listeners are. A lot of our listeners are they're all over in different places in life right now. And, some have kids, some have no kids, some are divorced, some are just getting married, some are single and going to stay single, right?
Yeah.
But all of us have a need for money. And a lot of us have credit cards that we also use on a daily basis. So, one of the ways that I found for myself also were to save money was to find credit cards that had a lower interest rate, right? And over a 1 month or over a 1 year period, you can save considerably a lot of money by paying lower interest on your own credit cards, right? So I know a lot of the times the credit cards I had were 19, 20%, and I know there's cards that are higher. There are cards that are lower as well, right? So trying to qualify for some of those cards that are a bit lower interest rates can be a great way to save that additional interest that you're not paying to the credit card companies, keeping a little bit more money in your pocket so you can use it to go do other things you want to do or pay down your debt a lot faster because you're not paying it on interest. Now you can pay it back on principal.
Now, one thing to look out for there, and I think that's a really great idea, is just that the worse off you are financially, the worse the deal you tend to get with your credit cards. So you can't expect to get a really great deal if you're already in debt. You might just get one of the crappiest credit cards, and they're like, yeah, you got to pay off your entire balance in the first month.
Which, not easy for everybody.
No, and some of them don't even disclose that information up front. So you're like, shoot, really? I have to pay? Oh, no. I'm in trouble now. So always look at the terms. But I agree. If you can get a better deal, even at a bank, for example, if you're getting charged too many fees for the use of your debit card, why not switch banks or switch accounts or find a solution that's worthwhile? Because I'm sure some competitors would be more than happy to help you out and to sign you up for a new account.
Yeah, especially these days, right? You said something about the fine print, and one of the things that we should be aware in the fine print, sometimes there is a yearly fee that we have to pay for having these credit cards.
That's
because
right.
A lot of times they are attached to, reward points or whatnot for the people, right? So sometimes we get all the glitter of the reward points and don't always think about the money it's going to cost us to gain these reward points, which are free, right? That these companies want to give us for using their cards, and they're not really free either. And I put that in quotations because they're really using the interest that we pay on our credit cards to really give us those rewards, right? So they're really rewarding us with our own money in essence.
Something my friend said to me, and I think Dave Ramsey says the same thing. Nobody gets rich off of points. So how people really insist on getting their Aeroplan miles or whatever it is, Shoppers Drug Mart points. Everybody has these points. But you're probably not going to get rich off of them, and the most you can expect is maybe a couple free products here and there, or perhaps a percentage off your bill or something like that.
Right, and I think those are fine because they're typically free cards, anyways.
Yeah.
But we're talking definitely about those cards that our listeners are paying for. So just take a look at how many cards you have and how much interest you're paying over all those different cards, and sometimes even consolidating potentially into one card with the lowest interest rate is a great way to save, not only $100, but a lot more per month potentially over the lifetime of your spending habit.
I think the greatest savings there is actually reduced stress of
Absolutely.
anything else, because you're looking at, I've got 5 bills coming in this month. Well, if you have that consolidated into one and you know exactly what your payments are going to be, or at least close to what your payments are going to be, you can budget better and you can expect it. So really the best thing that you're getting out of that is less stress.
That's right. And, once you got that credit card paid off, and, it may take some time, I know we're beating it down a little bit, but I think once it is paid down, is finding ways to get rid of that credit card as well, right?
I
and
agree.
then living either on a fully cash system or just a debit card system. But I think something you said earlier as well with the debit cards, making sure you understand what your transaction fees are. And, if your transaction fees are too high through your bank, you're correct. Find another institution that won't charge you as much, because there's lots of them right now looking for ways to gain your business.
With network marketing, it was certainly instilled in us too that debt was not a great thing, and you should pay for most things in cash when and where possible. And in general, I kind of agree. As an entrepreneur, though, I also find that you need some play. You need to have some funds. We couldn't do what we're doing right now, Maveen, if we didn't have a little bit of play in our schedule, a little bit of play in terms of the funds and resources that we can dedicate to an idea like this. So that's one thing to consider. But like if you can get it down to one credit card at least, even as an entrepreneur, then you're going to be much better off and less stressed, and you're going to be able to manage it a lot better. Yeah, and the next point that I wanted to share is live performance. This is not going to apply to everybody, and I think I said at the beginning that some of these points may not. But let's say, for example, that you're a stand-up comedian or a practicing musician or somebody that has some ability or skill that can perform live. Sometimes even people that can juggle, or clowns even, or mimes, right, could like do some street performance and then busk all day and may potentially earn $100. It's variable. There's no guarantee that you're going to make $100. But, you know, in the places that I play or in the bands that I play, making $100 at a venue is not difficult. And some bands, I'm sure, won't feel that way. And some musicians or artists listening to this won't feel that way. But partly it's an issue of self-confidence, just believing that you're actually worth that amount and then coming up with a product that you can present and be proud of. And no matter what other people say, because honestly, music will always be subjective. It's never completely objective thing, but it's definitely possible if you have that talent, if you've developed it, if you've worked on it, then live performance is totally a viable way to make at least $100.
No, that's a great thing. That's a great thing, David. I know a lot of guys who are into music as well, including yourself. You know, would you mind giving our audience maybe a little example of how you maybe started off getting into live performance, and you know, maybe a story about how you made your first $100 in that?
Interesting. Well, I was beginning to pick up guitar when I was 17, and I was also going to church. And churches are eager to have people on their worship teams almost always.
That's a great way to keep you in church, I think, isn't it?
It might be. And you know, I did it. You know, I decided to be a part of that, and you know, a certain amount of discipline with that, like getting up at 6 and then driving in to be at church for 7 for practice, and then after practice, then you're there till noon, you know, for the 2 services or whatever it is. It depends on the church and what their setup is, but in our case, that's usually what it was. So I think, though, my first $100 was also made because of my association with the church. I think we had some kind of anniversary gathering, perhaps, like it had been a certain number of years since the church was established. So like there was a dinner, and I was one of the musicians performing that night, and that's probably how I made my first $100, and that was within year 2 of starting. So
very nice. But you developed the skill while you were at the church, and you were playing, and people got to know who you were and kind of what your style was, and you got to perfect your style as well. And in that meantime, as you were getting, perfecting yourself, you were also preparing yourself to make that first $100 in performance and more in the future, right?
Well, I was also self-critical, and I don't think I was great yet, but I was at least able to see that, okay, there's still room for improvement. I can still be better, but I offered the best music I could at the time.
Right. No, I'm not saying you were perfect. I'm just saying you were good for where you were.
I like to think so, yeah.
Awesome.
I worked hard at it, right? Well, early on, I guess a lot of people would just kind of wade into the waters, but when I started playing guitar, I was like, there could be something here, and I feel like I have a natural tendency towards it, so I might as well develop that fast and not just go into it tentatively.
Right, and you do this all the time. And I mean, you have great conversations about some of the audiences that you guys play for when you guys go out to different venues and stuff, right? And what would you say, typically how many people need to show up at the venue for the person holding the event to be profitable typically and still pay you guys and still have a great payday for themselves?
Well, I think sort of the typical pub or bar, you can expect them to make $5,000-$6,000 in sales per day, if not 5 figures. So it's, it's not necessarily the responsibility of the musician to keep track of that or to try to invite the right number of people to get there. More so, I see the responsibility, unless, it's your CD release party, then you want all your fans there if it's a special occasion, obviously. But the responsibility of the musician, first and foremost, I think, is to keep the people that are there there, so that they keep buying more alcohol, they keep buying more food, they keep buying more drinks. And then really you've done your job in helping that bar or that place of business earn what they need to make. So that's probably not in revenue, right? That's gross amount that they're making. And I couldn't tell you what all their expenses are, but obviously employees, foods, ingredients, things like that.
Right. So do you feel our listeners who are into music could, take what you just said and maybe even do one gig a month, let's call it, and make $100 themselves doing exactly what you've done?
Well, I don't see why not. I think you would basically want to negotiate the terms and also make sure that you have a product that they want, whether it's the audience wants it or the bar wants it. You might have to meet somewhere in the middle as far as like creatively what you want to do, what the audience expects, and what the bar expects you to do in terms of like how long to perform. I think $100 for $100, like a 45-minute set, is totally fair. As a solo artist, maybe 2 sets, but then you might be selling yourself a bit short if you're any good at what you do. And if you're not great, okay, well, I think everybody needs to start somewhere. So start playing for free, okay, and then build up from there. Because I did tons of free gigs that didn't pay any money. Playing in church, that might have its rewards, but usually it wasn't money.
No, that's right.
So yes, it's doable. I just couldn't necessarily tell you. There's no one trajectory in music that everybody can follow to do exactly what I've done. All you can do is to be as good as you can be and daily work towards that. So what it took me 3 years to accomplish might take you a year, but it also might take you 10 years to feel that level of comfort playing for an audience. So I wish I could say there's like a proven method, but really everybody learns at a different pace. Everybody improves at a different pace. Songwriting, singing, playing an instrument. There's so many different elements and factors to being good at music. Again, if you have a product that enough people want, making $100 should be that difficult.
You're right. And one of the things I like what you said is working at the right pace, right?
Yeah.
And when you're working at the right pace, you're only not improving on yourself, but you're also finding different ways and different, you're networking on different ways to get out there and make yourself profitable, not only in the short term, but also for the long term, because people will get to know your name as well. Even if you do a couple of free gigs, that's great because you're investing that time today to make money tomorrow, right? And make that $100 down the road and more, right? And that I think is just a great example, David.
Well, there's a common saying that proves true in music, which is that there's no practice like live performance. Nothing will teach you faster what you're good at and not good at, and what needs more practice and attention than live performance when your nerves are kind of going a bit crazy.
You make me laugh because I thought the exact same thing about school, right? There's the things you learn in school and you learn in college and in university, but there's no real, learning until you actually get hands-on in your job that you want to do, right? So I fully agree with you as well.
Great point. What's your next point there, Mav?
My next point is kind of working with the idea of having an audience as well. Now, this point here is you may have to build on it, and like you were talking about earlier, doing the work for free, when you first get started, and then building your audience. My point here that I wrote down was maybe inviting, let's say, 20 people at $5 a person to come join a discussion. At 5 times 20 is $100, right? Now, you may have to start off with doing your discussions for free, right? And that discussion can be on any topic that you enjoy talking about, any topic that you have an audience that wants to come listen to you talk about as well, right? So it's not something that you may be able to charge for right away when you have no experience or no audience behind you or no real network behind you, right? But you get out there, maybe you meet 1 or 2 people first for free, and you kind of start building from there, get them to spread the word to other people, telling them what you're about and what they're learning from you, and you build to that, right? You build to that 20 people, then you build to that people who are coming, 20, 30 people that are coming, and then you look at ways to make some money on that because your time is valuable. You're trying to build a brand, and you can start maybe potentially charging, let's say, $5. Now, would people get turned off? Yeah, some people would probably get turned off because they feel entitled to you working for free, and that kind of goes back to what we were saying in our last episode, where people do feel entitled sometimes to getting things when and they don't want to pay for things. But I mean, when you bring value to people, charging $5, which is not a lot of money, because there's many speakers. We were just talking about before we started recording, Anthony Robbins or Tony Robbins, his new movie here that he put out a couple months back. In his 1 6-day session, he charges $5,000.
Yeah.
So I mean, $5 a person is very easy, I think, for a lot of people to come up with compared to $5. Now you're maybe not going through the same type of system, but it's a great place to start for the people and for yourself to start developing your own business, and maybe it's kind of seeing where that takes you.
Well, and the interesting part about that, and you kind of touched on it, is that that's a scalable business model, right? On the one hand, you could be like a consultant. Now, there's only a certain point at which you run out of time personally, and you can't do any more of that. But like consultants are often paid fairly well, and if you pick your industry well, you won't have to like travel all the time and dedicate all your time to like planning and learning and building new skills. That is actually kind of one of the exciting parts of consulting, mind you. So like if that's what you want to do, you could do that. But so on the one hand, gathering people together in a group, you could consult with them in your particular industry if you know it well, or around a particular idea, and then teach them how to do it. And then the other way of looking at it is actually online community, or like even just community period. There's not necessarily a limit to the number of people you could bring into like an online community as an entrepreneur. You could bring in as many as you feel you can actually handle and manage. Like how many questions could you answer in a day kind of is really where your limit would be. But then if you train and hire other people, then it's really kind of a limitless, very scalable business too. So it does appeal to me, like the idea that you could first start with maybe $100, get $5 each to people to pay that amount. And I think even like hosting like a small scale music industry conference, I think it's quite possible that I could get people to pay $15, $20 to come out to something like that.
Yeah, for sure. Once you become good at what you do, right? So for our listeners, it's the idea of trying to figure out what you're good at, right? And what is it that you enjoy doing, and what do you think, based on what you're good at doing, will people pay you to kind of learn from, right? I know
That's
for
right.
yourself, you're a music guy, right? You like playing, and could you teach maybe 20 people to play at $5 an hour, let's say, but over 20 people, that's $100 an hour you just made, but you taught as a big class, right? It's kind of what they do with teachers in school as well, right? They pay them their really low wages, unfortunately, to teach our kids, right? And 30 kids, 40 kids in a classroom sometimes, at least when I was growing up, it was like 30, 40 kids. Now I think sometimes they have tried to bring those class sizes down and try to make it a little bit more personal, but still, you're still getting paid the same amount of money to teach a small group of people versus individual, right? So they're using that and trying to replicate that into each one of the kids.
Well, it leads nicely into my next more gooder way of making money.
More gooder way, I love it.
Which is teaching and or instruction, right? The thing about something like guitar instruction, and you touched on it, like, no, people don't pay me $5 an hour to teach guitar. It's more like $60 an hour. So there's a couple of different ways that would work. If I was teaching in a studio, I would actually have to teach anywhere from 6 to 10 students to make that $100. But if I was teaching privately, that could be 1, 2, or maybe 3 students. But there's a very, it's actually kind of similar to what you said earlier about getting a group together of people and then having them each pay you $5. But this is like more perhaps one-on-one, or it could be even a more formalized like group session on a particular course, particular training, particular subject that you feel confident you can teach on. And I think skills like music, like language would be another valuable one that people would pay you for. Like, I speak Japanese. Could I teach Japanese lessons? More than likely, and actually charge a good amount for it.
I think if I tried to teach Hindi or Punjabi, I'd have to pay the people back, because it's pretty bad. Even though I can speak it, it's pretty bad.
And even something as minute, because like I don't do my own taxes. I have an accountant that does mine. If you could teach people how to do their taxes, right, at the end of the year, I'd say there's probably some people that would pay for that, because guess what? Now you're saving them money year after year.
Well, you said that, that's definitely a great business model, but even just to start saving yourself some money, depending on what kind of business you have, if you don't really have a business, let's say you're a 9 to 5 type guy that works, you can actually teach yourself to do your own taxes, use the software that's available. Don't, I'm not saying take money out of the accountant's pockets, like I would never say that, but I mean, it's just a great way to start because the accountants usually charge, about $100 plus to do your taxes sometimes. So if you can do your own taxes, that's just another great way of not only learning how to do it yourself and what it takes and what kind of stuff you can actually write off in your personal life or your business, but it's a great way to put that money aside and like you said, now maybe use that money to fund your business to teach other people how to do as well.
Well, here's a point slightly to the contrary.
Ooh, I love that.
I recently heard James Franco say, don't get too good at the small things. And I think it depends on your goal. Obviously, if you want to be good at every skill in life and be able to do everything and have absolutely no deficiencies, you're going to be a good all-around person and you will have value that way. Whereas if you want to be a business owner or somebody that's in the top of their field in music, in sports, in some other area, then actually the less time you spend on minute small things, the better. Taking bottles to the bottle depot I mentioned earlier, that would be one thing that I should totally eliminate from my schedule because I can probably make more money elsewhere. Writing another article for some publication would probably be a better use of my time. If I can get mowing the lawn, I'm renting, so I don't have to mow the lawn. Shoveling snow, I don't have to shovel the snow because I'm renting. Buying groceries, like long-term perspective is to not do any of those things. But in the short term, I am the only person in my business, so I have to, evaluate carefully where my time is going, but also do the things that I need to do.
In the short term, you're 100% right, David. I would 100% agree with you because, one of the skills, if you can learn how to do, for example, your own taxes, when you are paying an accountant to do your taxes down the road to free up that time for yourself, you'll always know if your accountant's stealing from you as well, right? You can always know because you know exactly what you're looking for.
That's
you
true.
Understand how to do those things. So in part, I do agree when you have the time and you have the money, pay somebody else to do your taxes. But if you're somebody who's looking for a way to, save $100 right now or trying to keep $100 in your pocket, learn how to do the taxes yourself. And then when you're out of that position, pay somebody to do your taxes. And now when you're reviewing it all, you'll always know, right? And you can always use that same information, like you said earlier, to help other people do their taxes. You don't necessarily have to charge them in that case, but let's say a friend asks you, hey, I know you did your taxes before, what did you use on line 110, whatever line, right? But you can always help people because now you become that person person that your friends go to because you have that knowledge that they don't have, right? So it's not necessarily for everybody. It's not the way everybody thinks. I understand that, but it's just one of the ways that that I was just thinking as we were chatting.
No, that's a really fair point because you do want to keep a finger on the pulse of your business's finances.
That's
so
right.
It'd be silly not to.
Yeah, that's how a lot of athletes, just multimillionaire athletes lose a lot of money too, right? Because they entrust their finances to
Someone
other
else.
people, right? Like prime example was Mike Tyson. He had a lot of his money stolen from Don King, right? Because he wasn't paying attention to his taxes, his finances. He wasn't, he put it in somebody else's hands, right? So there's a place for putting in somebody else's hands, and there's a place to know, like you said, keep your finger on the pulse on knowing what is actually happening within your own life.
Yeah, and what you just described, that type of exploitation, is also fairly common in like wrestling as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
something we both grew up on, I have a feeling.
yeah, definitely, man. Our grandpas, that's how you get introduced to wrestling, right? It's your grandpa always.
Well, I think it was my cousin. My grandpa wasn't living in in Montreal with us back then, but I think my cousin introduced me to wrestling at the time.
Right.
My last point that I have here was something a little different, something that I started doing. I guess it goes kind of into that arbitrage idea that you were talking about earlier a little bit,
Yeah.
but a little bit different. one of the things that I'm starting to do is also build my online presence through my own online business with different teas and just different products that I'm always looking for that, I can buy
As
buy
in
at
like
a low
green
price.
tea, black tea.
Yeah, exactly. Green teas, black tea. Even nowadays, I'm looking at different herbs that I can even mix together with those teas that do different things for people. But one of the things that I was doing is just to kind of start my startup capital. Again, I've always been the type of person that says, I have a little bit of money to invest, so I don't mind taking that small investment to turn it into a larger investment.
Yeah.
Now, I kind of changed my mindset a little bit the other day. I was actually listening to a podcast called My Wife Quit Her Job. And one of the things that the guests on the show said was...
What was his name again? Cho?
Yeah, Steve Cho.
Steve
I believe it is.
Cho,
Yeah.
yeah.
So one of the things one of his guests said was... as soon as they made an order of the product, they started pre-selling the product right away before they even got the shipment to their door. So one of the things I thought of was like, well, before I even order the product, I like the idea of drop shipping. Why don't I try to pre-sell the item before I even order the item?
you even bring it in.
And then I can bring it in and ship it to people right away, right?
Yeah.
So not on a huge, large scale, but enough of a scale to, try to make a little extra money on the side. Plus, I'm giving people a service. I'm giving them a product that they want or that they didn't even know that existed until I posted it and saying, hey, who would be interested in joining me in purchasing one of these items as well?
It's like e-commerce on a smaller scale. in a way,
Absolutely.
which I like too. And my last point was also kind of skill based. And it's interesting how, like, I don't know if we planned it or not, or if we were just on the same brain wave, but like all these kind of seem to tie in with each other, which is, to have a skill. But, selling household items, I'd say, is one thing we can all do, even if we don't have particular experience or skill. But freelancing would be an area where you would have to have some kind of skill. Writing articles, that's how I've made a good portion of my livelihood in the last few years. Music, another place I've made a good portion of my livelihood. Web design, that's something people still pay for. Graphic design, I don't know if people will ever stop paying for graphic or web design, despite how easy the tools and how good the tools have gotten. If you want something unique, if you want something really good that stands out, you probably still need to design it yourself, or find somebody who is willing to design it for you. So there's so many different skills that you can sell as a freelancer. And also, I mean, us freelancers aren't always the best managers of our time. So that's something I would say to watch out for. But for making an extra $100, you could probably put in an hour or two of work. And even if you're completely inexperienced, I'd say you could easily do that in 8 hours of work.
Absolutely. And one of the things I like what you said about freelancing was it's not necessarily something you have to do in the writing industry or whatnot, right? So I know myself, this year, one of my goals was to take up a new hobby because I think I don't have any hobbies.
Photography, right?
Yeah, it was photography. So one of the things that my wife kind of signed me up without even asking me, which is totally fine because I would love to do it anyways. One of my friends here is actually just getting married in December here. And she asked me if I could be the photographer at the wedding. And I said, I don't know anything about it, but you know what? It put me on the spot where I have to quickly learn. And it's now taking that hobby that I really enjoy and making potentially something of it. I'm not obviously charging him anything. I'm doing it for free, but that's part of the freelance sometimes is first starting off, not potentially making a lot of money at the front end until you get really good and people start seeing the skills you have and they really want to pay you for those skills that you bring to the table anytime you talk to them.
Well, I think that's a good thing to pay attention to. We call it resonance, right? When is an idea being, supported by so many people, or they see the potential or the value in it, or they tell you that you're really good at something in particular. Those can be good indicators sometimes of directions to start heading into and become more competent and better at.
For sure. One of the things I know we're probably coming close to the end of our podcast.
How
today.
did you know?
Well, I can see the time on the screen. It's actually pretty good. And plus, I think we've gone through all 10 examples. Plus, I think we've given probably a few more than 10 examples in there.
That's
but,
right.
One of the
5
things,
times 2 ways. Actually, that's still 10.
it's still 10. Always going to be 10, no matter how you multiply. One of the things I'd like to know from our listening audience is, have they had an opportunity to kind of start brainstorming and thinking of different ways they can make $100, if not per week, per month, even if it's, per day. I'd love to know what people are thinking on a big scale, but also what they're thinking on the smaller scale, right? Because I think if you could start figuring out how to make even $10 a day to $20 to $30 to $40, you eventually start figuring out how to make more and, potentially even then becoming that entrepreneur that you may be dreaming of to become.
Yeah.
Now, if you're not looking to be in any sort of business, hopefully we've still given people examples that they can use in their everyday life and maybe even use from their everyday hobbies and skills to implement and then maybe just help people and just look for different ways to make a little extra money as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And in addition to like any additional tips that you might have around how to make $100, we'd love to hear success stories as well. So if you succeed using any of our suggestions and making the extra $100, we would really love to hear about that. And we'd like to hear how this episode encouraged you. So we hope you're feeling powered up. Is there anything else, Maveen?
No, man, I'm excited.
Wicked. Well, this has been a great chat, and we look forward to connecting with you again. This has been Using Your Power. Check us out online at usingyourpower.com. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.